Welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. We got a true treat today. We got a father, a husband, a solicitor, and a man that wants to be your next Attorney General. He has a reputation of being a hard-nosed prosecutor. Today we have David Pascoe with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Autry.
I'm honored you'd be here to make the trip down to talk to us.
Absolutely. I love Horry County. Horry County is going to be Pascoe country in June.
Well, we're glad to have you here for sure.
Thank you.
Well, hey, I want to start right at the beginning. I like to get to know our guests. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. I'm an old man. I was born in 1967, so I'm getting close to 60.
You're young.
Yeah. But I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Came to South Carolina in 1985 to go to the Citadel. Graduated from there in 89 and stayed down here ever since. I never really left after I came here in 85.
Wow. And so then after the Citadel, certainly you're an attorney. Did you know you want to go into the law?
Yeah. In fact, ever since I was 15 years old, I knew I wanted to do one thing, be a prosecutor.
Wow.
And everything I did, I took that path to try to be a prosecutor. I busted my tail at the Citadel. I worked harder in those 4 years than I did the 12 years previously combined. I graduated near the top of my class at the Citadel in magna cum laude. Got into Carolina Law School. And when I was, right before I started Carolina Law School, in fact, after I graduated the Citadel, I called the then United States Attorney at the time, Bart Daniel. He was the Republican United States Attorney, had been appointed by George H.W. Bush. And I said, Mr. Daniel, I called him at home. Remember, we didn't have cell phones in 1989.
Landlines.
Yeah, we had to call him on his landline. I said, I hope I'm not bothering you at dinner. I was nervous. But I noticed you're a Citadel graduate. I really want to be a prosecutor. Can you get me a job at the United States Attorney's Office as a law clerk? And he told me, I'll tell you what. He said, David, once you start law school, call us back and I'll find you a clerkship. And once I started law school at South Carolina, I started as a law clerk immediately in the United States Attorney's Office. And I clerked there all 3 years of law school.
Wow. Where was that at? Was that
in Columbia?
In Columbia, okay.
Downtown Columbia. And to let your viewers know, and I know a lot of Horry viewers aren't necessarily from Horry. Many moved here,
absolutely,
like I did in 85, over 40 years ago. But at the time, Operation Lost Trust was taking place.
Okay.
And that was the first big public corruption probe dealing with corrupt legislators until my probe in the 2016 to 2021. So I got a front seat view of the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecuting legislators for 3 years as a law clerk and got to work on those cases. And of course, it stuck with me over the years. I learned a lot.
Two questions that came out of that is how did you pick the Citadel? Did you know that's where you wanted to go? And what was the biggest thing you learned going to the Citadel? I mean, it's a pretty rigid place.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I went to a parochial military high school in Richmond, Virginia called Benedictine High School.
Okay.
Same one that Steve Bannon went to.
Wow.
We graduated from the same school about 10 years apart. And it's the same school my father and my uncles went to. So we had mean monks that ran the school. It was all male and it was military.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit of that. I enjoyed the rigidness, of the military. So I wanted to go to a military school. It was basically either going to be VMI or the Citadel. And when I came and visited Charleston,
fell in love.
And I had visited Lexington, Virginia. Look, there's nothing wrong with Lexington, Virginia. It's pretty up there too, but it's cold.
Right.
And it's not as nice. I fell in love with Charleston. I decided to go to the Citadel.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And you said that you knew you wanted to be a prosecutor. Where did that come from, and where did that drive? I mean, did you watch TV, read books, or
I was 15 years old.
Okay.
I'd gotten a book for Christmas called The Pursuit of Justice by former Attorney General Bobby Kennedy. And I read it that January before I went to school. So it's 1983. Remember that because that might be relevant later in this interview.
I got you.
But I read the book, and I remember thinking back then, hey, that's who I want to be like. But really now when I think about it, it was more, that is who I am like. Maybe that's why I like those military schools. I like rigidness. I like abiding by the rules, and I don't like people that break the rules. I don't like bullies, and neither did he. And when I sat there and I read about how this was the kind of man who fought the mob. This is the man who fought dirty legislators and corruption all over the country. This was the guy who, when his assistant attorney general came up to him and said, Mr. Attorney General, you can't prosecute that person. And he asked why. And his assistant told him, well, because your father's best friend and your brother doesn't want you to prosecute it, the president. And Bobby Kennedy asked one question: is prosecuting him the right thing to do? And when the assistant said, yes, sir, he said, then prosecute him.
Wow.
And he sent his father's best friend to prison for corruption.
No friends, just the law.
It's just the law.
Yeah.
You know, we're not doing things to make friends. You don't go into public office to make friends. You go into public office to serve the people and do what's right for them. And then, you know, I'm so glad you brought up the Citadel, because I need to mention this more out there. The one thing I am most proud of about the Citadel is our honor code. It's simple, but it's the best honor code in the world of any school in the country, and it's one that very few Americans live by. It's very simple. You don't lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate those who do. And remember this, Autry, at the Citadel, toleration is just as bad as doing the actual act. So at the Citadel, if you lie, cheat, steal, or just tolerate those who do, you get thrown out. It's one penalty for an honor violation. You get thrown out. And what we have in South Carolina right now, look, we're always going to have people lying, cheating, and stealing up at the State House, and in county government, and in municipalities. But what really drives me crazy is we also have toleration. And the days of toleration have got to come to an end in South Carolina.
Wow, that's a good point. Wow, that's good. Okay, thank you for answering that. So, okay, so you graduate, you get a clerkship at...
All 3 years at the U.S. Attorney's Office while I'm at the University of South Carolina School of Law. And then I got my break. Again, I wanted to be a state prosecutor. And because I was working at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I got an interview with some bombastic prosecutor out of Columbia named Dick Harpootlian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We sat down with him.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's you told me that. So what happened was because back then to get a job at a solicitor's office, it was difficult. You had to know somebody to get your foot in the door to get an interview. And I had an assistant U.S. attorney was friends with Harpootlian, and he got me an interview. And I'll never forget this. I'm going to let your viewers hear about this. True story, 100% true. He got me the interview.
Right.
And my friend told me, or asked me, he said, David, are you a Republican or a Democrat? And I said, well, I'm going to say his name, Greg. I said, well, Greg, you know, I'm a Republican because I'm just very conservative and I always vote Republican.
Right.
He said, no, you can't tell Harpootlian that. I was like, no, he said, no, you got to lie. You got to lie. I said, Greg, I'm not going to lie to the guy. And I said, also, he's not going to ask that question.
Yeah.
In my 25-year-old mind, I was like, that's an improper question for a prosecutor job. He's not going to ask me that question.
Yeah.
All right, Autry, I sit down in Dick Harpootlian's office. What's the first question he asked me?
And what party you were?
He said, Pascoe, are you a Republican or a Democrat? And I said, well, Mr. Harpootlian, I'm very conservative, always have been. So I generally always vote for the Republican because they're the most conservative person in the race. And for the next 10 minutes, I had to listen to him tell me about how they're conservative Democrats. And the interview was not going well, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
But after 10 or 15 minutes, the interview turned around, and the last question he asked me was, Pascoe, do you even know any Democrats?
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, if it makes you feeling better.
And then he hired me.
Yeah, I invited him to the Republican Party because I'll be honest with you, a lot of his views do seem very conservative to me.
Yeah.
You know, but man, that's quite.
Especially fiscally and, of course,
Physically.
death penalty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
so what was a young Dick Harpootlian? Which you told us a story. Was he spunky back in those days?
Oh, he was worse than he is now.
Really?
Yeah, he was younger and had a whole lot more spunk. His mouth even had less of a filter back then.
Yeah.
But despite my being a conservative and even admitting to him that I always voted Republican, he still hired me.
Yeah.
And he was somebody to learn from in the courtroom.
So you went to work.
I went to work. I loved it.
Tell me all
It
about it.
wasn't even work. I started off prosecuting juveniles in 1993.
Okay.
Which, if I had it my way, every prosecutor would start prosecuting in family court in juveniles, because if you can prosecute a case in family court, you can prosecute a case in front of a jury. And the thing about prosecuting in family court is you're prosecuting everything from malicious injury to murder as a young prosecutor. And you're looking, and the great thing about being a juvenile prosecutor is that's where you can really make a difference.
Okay.
Because
To correct their path.
to try to get them down the corrected path, yes. Look, I got a two-prong approach with juveniles. The ones that are toting guns, committing murders, armed robberies, they do either need to be waived to general sessions or go to DJJ. But for all those other juveniles, if you end up sending those nonviolent juveniles to DJJ, all you're doing is you're ending up going to see them one day in the Department of Corrections. You're taking them down that path. So what we have to do with juveniles, and what we did back in 1993 and 1994, and what I'm going to do statewide as the Attorney General, is we had what's called the Youth Mentor Program, where you take that juvenile who has a lack of structure in their life. They start off as truants, shoplifters. They break into garages to steal a beer. You take those children, and instead of sticking them in DJJ where they'll learn to be better criminals, you assign them to churches. You assign them to youth organizations. Those churches and youth organizations will be trained in how to mentor the child. They will check on the child's school life, tutor the child, check on the student's home life, and come back and report to the family court and the solicitor's office on how that child is doing.
Wow.
I can promise you this, in my 33 years of prosecuting the cases, there has never been a program better than the Youth Mentor / Church Diversion Program in steering children down the right path.
Wow. That sounds like good work.
Yeah, and we're going to do it statewide, at a statewide level again. And it actually was done at a statewide level. 2 men got together to do this statewide for a while. And you couldn't find 2 men more opposite than Dick Harpootlian and Charlie Condon.
Wow.
Former Attorney General Charlie Condon. They came together. That tells you how great this program is. And had instituted it for many, many years statewide. Now we're going to reinstitute it.
Man, that's great. Did your role progress in the solicitor's office then?
Yeah, I did. I prosecuted juveniles for a year in family court, and then I went straight into start prosecuting all cases. And I really started to hit my, not prime, but really started trying a lot of violent cases around 1996. You know, from 1996 until I became solicitor in January 2005, I had already tried well over 200 violent crime indictments.
Gotcha. And now you're in Columbia at this point.
And that's in Columbia, South Carolina.
All right, bring me up to speed on your personal life at this point. Are you married at this point?
We're married.
Tell me about that. How'd you meet your wife?
We got 3 sons.
Okay.
And actually, my wife now, Christy, who's with me here today, I made my Sicilian mother very proud and married a Sicilian girl.
Okay.
She brought 1 son into the relationship.
Okay.
I brought 3 sons.
Okay.
So not quite the Brady Bunch, but
Right.
you know, close. We're getting there.
Wow.
But all of them are on for a payroll too.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
they're all 25 or above.
I got you. How many years of marriage?
She and I,
Yes.
several years now.
Several
Yeah.
years. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So putting bad criminals behind bars.
Yeah. Like I said, so from 2005, or excuse me, from 1996 to 2005, I tried a couple hundred violent crime indictments successfully. I've been on court TV.
Yeah.
It was living the dream, and I decided I wanted to run for solicitor.
I got you.
And
So
I
tell
filed.
me about that. How running for solicitor come to be? Was it time? Tell me all about jumping in that race.
Yeah. Well, after about a dozen years almost of being an assistant solicitor, I knew that I wanted to be a solicitor. I was living in St. Matthews,
Okay.
South Carolina, which is in Calhoun County, and that is in the 1st Judicial Circuit, which is Calhoun, Orangeburg, and Dorchester counties. And I filed for solicitor. It was actually the state party approached me and said, "We understand you want to be a solicitor." I said, "Yeah." State Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, we want you to run for solicitor in the 1st Circuit." And I said, "Well, same thing I told Harpootlian a dozen years earlier." I said, "Guys, you know, pro-capital punishment and pro-life, very pro-life. pretty conservative guy. Is that going to be okay for you to run on the Democratic ticket? And they said, are you going to lock up criminals and make Orangeburg safer? I said, yes. They said, we want you to run for solicitor. So I ran as a Democrat, and I won in November of 2004. And sure enough, one of the first things I did when I became solicitor in January or February 2005 is I noticed somebody for the death penalty.
Yeah, I got you, and I appreciate you saying that, David. You took the one question I had is that I think running for state attorney general, heavy Republican state, you just made a switch. So we're going to get half of the donkey out of the room now. But was there a debate? Did you think about filing as a Republican then, or you just knew?
Then no, I really didn't, since they approached me, and the incumbent that I was running against was a Republican.
Okay, good.
But let me tell you, the great thing. I've never wavered on my values. I'm always the most conservative person in the race. When I ran as a Democrat in 2004, the very conservative Republican sheriff of Dorchester County, Ray Nash, endorsed and supported me over the Dorchester Republican.
I got you.
Because I'm the most conservative person in the race.
Would you say the Democrat Party of that day is different than the Democratic Party of today, even in South Carolina?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you bring up a great point. You said even in South Carolina. South Carolina, the state Democratic Party, I'm not talking about the voters. The state party has gotten almost as bad as the national party. One of the several reasons I left the Democratic Party was that they rig elections. And I'm not talking about the national. I'm talking about right here in South Carolina when we had a sheriff's race in Charleston. And by far the most qualified person running for sheriff on the Democrat side filed against the incumbent in Charleston, who was friends with the chairwoman of the Democratic Party in South Carolina. The Democratic Party took his name off the ballot. He was going to beat her. He was going to beat her by a lot. And they took his name off of the ballot.
I got you.
That's rigging an election.
Yeah.
And then the irony of that, of course, is, as you may know, now I'm a Republican. I left the Democratic Party to leave the party that rigs elections. And then the good old boy establishment a couple weeks ago did everything they could to keep my name off the ballot.
Yeah.
Because they know that I'm going to beat their good old boy candidates.
I got you. Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So you run. So tell me how that election you won.
Won that election. I was solicitor in January 2005, and I've been reelected every year since.
Okay, I got you. So,
or every 4 years.
So tell me about being the solicitor. What is your mindset? What is your guardrails? What's your principles? How have you ran your office?
And it's real simple. Tough on violent crime, and try to help those that commit nonviolent offenses before they become violent criminals. It's as simple as that. Same with adults as with juveniles.
Yeah.
It's no really magic sauce to it.
Yeah, I got you. How about being a solicitor and setting up an office and the people you look for? Tell me, are you more administrating the office as a solicitor where you're at now, or how much are you in the courtroom yourself?
That's a great question. Early on, I wanted to set the example of what we needed. So in my first couple of years, I tried over a couple of dozen violent crimes, mostly murders, and won them all to set, like I said, the standard. And that's the best part of the job, is trying cases. But other than those first several years where I got to do that, it's 1 or 2 trials a year, and mostly trying to manage the office because I've got 3 offices: Orangeburg, Calhoun, and Dorchester.
Wow. So you got a good staff?
Got a great staff. In fact, they won a huge murder just last week in Orangeburg. Got a great staff. I'm very proud of them. And then, as you know, when we got into the 2014s, 15s, 16s, my life really took a turn because of the State House corruption probe.
I got you. So where you're at now, how does your area change? Have you seen crime rise, decrease, level?
It goes up and down. When I took over as a solicitor for Orangeburg County, Dorchester has always had a pretty good low crime rate. as has Calhoun. Orangeburg's always had a very high crime rate. When I took over as solicitor, Orangeburg had either the worst or second worst crime rate in the country. Not just the state, the country. Within a couple of years of setting those examples, you start locking people up and putting them behind bars and start moving those murder cases. You see the crime rate will start going down. And you start implementing programs like that juvenile diversion program, those 14, 15, 16-year-olds that would be committing adult crimes at 17 and 18 aren't committing them anymore. So the crime rate in Orangeburg went way down. But it fluctuates. There was a time in the 2017s it went back up, then we brought it back down, went back up right after COVID, and now we're right back into the process of bringing it down again.
I got you. You know, and I appreciate you saying early on, you knew you wanted to be a prosecutor. Your whole career path is going that way. Even at this point, you still feel like you're on God's plan for your life and where you're at. I mean, did you see AG at this point, or you're just very content where you're at being the solicitor?
Well, I'm content, and I wish I didn't have to run for Attorney General. But I'm going to tell you what keeps me up at night.
Okay.
I was the special prosecutor during the State House corruption probe.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. How did that come on your radar? How did all that take place?
Well, it started in 2014 when the Attorney General's office was prosecuting Bobby Harrell. And they were running, he was the Speaker of the House, the most powerful.
Who's the Attorney General at this point?
It was Alan Wilson.
Wilson.
It was Alan Wilson. And the AG's office was having some difficulties with that because there were all kinds of motions to get them taken off the case for conflicts of interest or, you know, whatever. And a number of prosecutors turned it down.
Didn't want to touch it.
Did not want to touch it.
Okay.
In fact, one prosecutor turned it down. Called it a hornet's nest.
Okay.
And as I've said many times, he's right. I got the stings to prove it.
So if Attorney General wants to assign it to a solicitor, y'all have the right to reject it? I guess I'm learning something here.
Yeah, we have the right to reject it.
Yeah.
He can't make a prosecutor prosecute a case. He can't tell me what to do on a case.
Okay.
But the Attorney General is the chief prosecutor, can take that case. They have that they have that authority.
Okay.
So these prosecutors, it was at least 4 of them, they turned it down. One of them in particular, like I said, called it a hornet's nest. He came to me, asked me if I would look at it. I looked at it. The next day, I told him I'll take it. And within a month and a half, I had indicted and removed Bobby Harrell from office.
Wow.
Not even Alan thought that I could do that or work that fast at the time. But they had done a good job, I thought, of putting pieces together. I was able to finalize those pieces, and I did something fairly novel at the time. This had never been done. You're bringing up memories as to this case I really hadn't thought about. Nobody had thought about indicting him for 10-year misconduct in office. All the crimes that people had thought about indicting Harrell for were 1-year crimes, a 1-year misconduct, 1-year ethics violations. And I told him, I said, the problem with this is, you indict him, I only indict him on these, he's going to stay Speaker of the House. He needs to be removed from Speaker of the House. He needs to be immediately suspended. None of these would get him suspended. So I came up with an indictment for the 10-year misconduct in office, indicted him on that, I think it was in September of 2014. And like I said, by October, I had him removed from office.
And I guess I'm asking a very elementary question here, but I guess SLED, or they had already done their investigation. So basically, they had done their investigation and laid it on your desk, and then you dove in from there.
That's right.
I got you.
Yeah.
You know, was it just so overwhelming? I mean, let's bring our listeners up. Speaker of the House of Representatives, South Carolina. That's who you were indicting.
Yeah. Now, that wasn't the overwhelming one.
Okay.
All right. I had a lot of help in that, and I was able to, I indicted him, convicted him, gone, got him removed from office. There was another part to the SLED file that alleged potential crimes by other legislators. SLED was wondering why the Attorney General's office wasn't investigating those legislators. And they came to me and asked me to investigate it. And I told them, no, guys, I can't. I don't have jurisdiction over that. I've only got jurisdiction over Bobby Harrell. But I said, what I will do is I will put the AG's office on notice that I'm aware of these potential crimes, and SLED is aware of these potential crimes and has concerns about them, and they want them looked into. And I did that in an email.
I got
So it was on the record. After I finished with Bobby Harrell in late October of 2014, I thought I was done.
Yeah. Let me pause you right there and ask you, so did y'all go into a courtroom? Did y'all he
I
plea
pled him
out?
guilty in court. Yeah.
So, okay, so y'all went into court. Did he fight it or
Nope.
No? Okay.
Didn't fight it, because if he had gone to trial, it would have convicted the hell out of him.
I got you. How long did that process take?
The guilty plea?
Well, just when you took it to where he pled out, he was
I
convicted.
indicted that case in September, and he pled guilty in October.
Wow.
Now, how many cases do you know that they get finished in a month?
Yeah. What was his sentence?
It was probation with a lot of restitution.
Okay.
And I can't remember the amount of restitution, because what he was doing was he was treating his campaign account like a piggy bank.
Okay.
So, so that was in late October, I think.
Okay.
I was done. I did my service to the state, thought I was finished.
When did he resign? Did he resign?
Oh, immediately. He actually, he resigned sometime before his guilty plea. But because he was indicted in September for the 10-year misconduct, he had to be suspended immediately by law. The crime carried over a year, you had to be suspended.
Dave, let me ask you at this point, were you treated different in the state? Did you get any people says, leave this alone? Did you get any outside pressure? Not that it affected you, but like, what was that like? I don't know if I'm asking this question.
That came later.
Okay.
That's what we're getting to, where you were leading up to.
Yeah, and we got about a minute here. We're gonna wrap up. And
Oh, wow.
We're going to pick this
We'll
up.
pick it
folks.
back up.
Pick
Okay.
back up.
So October, I'm gone. I'm First Circuit Solicitor again. I don't have to worry about the State House corruption. All of a sudden, on July 14th, 2015, I get a letter out of nowhere from the Attorney General's office asking me to take over the rest of the grand jury probe. Remember those parts I told you about that SLED was upset about? The Deputy Attorney General asked me to look into those with SLED. And SLED said later in an affidavit that no one, from October to July, no one had looked at those allegations as to whether anybody else should be charged.
And I'm going to ask this question again. Had SLED done an investigation on those other parts at this time?
Only to only to put it in their report as to the allegation, but they didn't look into the allegations because no one gave them direction to do it.
Okay.
But they were repeatedly saying, please get Pascoe involved, please let Pascoe do it, please let Pascoe do it. And then I guess that's going to be the beginning of part two. How's that? Because that's when all hell breaks loose.
It does. So you have indicted and prosecuted Speaker of the House, and he's resigned. And then there's a second part where they ask you to look into some more legislators, if that is correct.
So you got my blood pressure going in the first interview. By 2015, I'd put 2 men on death row. I tried several hundred violent crime indictments successfully. In 2015, just turned my life upside down, but I think for the better of this state, as far as what I had to go through. SLED came back to me that late summer and asked me to take a look at the rest of the statewide corruption probe that they were putting together, which involved the most powerful people in the state. Richard Quinn and Associates, which was the most powerful consulting firm in the state. John Corson, who is the president pro tem of the Senate. Jim Harrison, who was the chairman of the Judiciary. Rick Quinn and Jimmy Merrill, former majority leaders of the State House. And I worked with SLED. In fact, I always had 2 or 3 agents working on office full time. They had an office in our basement at the courthouse, and we started to follow the money and follow the evidence. And by February of 2016, Chief Keel and I, the SLED chief, decided we needed to have the statewide grand jury investigate these cases further with grand jury subpoenas so we could get more evidence, because we were already finding a lot of evidence. Also at that exact same time, and we don't have near enough time to talk about it, but I'm going to throw it out there, maybe you'll bring me back. You had the establishment Republican Party and the establishment Democratic Party of Orangeburg County literally working together to find someone to run against me in the Democratic primary to get me so the probe would go away. That's how nasty this got. And I was able to prevent that from happening. And once I did prevent that from happening, Chief Keel and I got that grand jury impaneled. We got a judge to approve it, and then all hell broke loose because the Attorney General's office fired me from the case.
Oh, wow.
And because they were his friends that I was investigating. And I sued the Attorney General, and the state Supreme Court heard the case in June, and in July of 2016, they gave the case back to Pascoe.
Wow.
And said that I was the special prosecutor on the corruption probe. And I remember getting a lot of phone calls congratulating me. I said, now, if you were going to congratulate me as if I had lost this case, because now I'm the dog that's caught the car. But anybody that knows me knows that I'm that dog. I'm going to rip off that bumper. I'm going to take off the tires if I have to. And that's what I did. A lot of powerful people try to get involved. One very powerful person called a friend of mine. It was the same day the Supreme Court had given me the case in July 2016 and said to him, hey, aren't you friends with Pascoe? Can you get him to lay off of my friend Richard Quinn? And my friend told him, yeah, I am friends with him. But if I called him and asked him to do that, we wouldn't be friends anymore. And that little bastard will indict us both.
Kind of reminds me of the book you said you read early on in your life. Bobby Kennedy's coming out in you a little bit.
Kind of going full circle.
Go circle. So I guess the principle you learned from that book and him, you're mirrored in your life. What were the charges that end up coming?
There you go. And so in short, after, with a lot of hard work from my assistants and SLED, we indicted all of those people I just mentioned with misconduct in office for various crimes that they committed, and all of them were removed from office. Only one went to trial, and that was Jim Harrison. And after I convicted him, he got a 3-year sentence to go to prison.
And what was his charge?
Misconduct in office and some other charges.
What was he doing? What was he?
All right, and he's the one we really need to talk about the most because I think he was the most egregious. Jim Harrison was the chairman of the House Judiciary, where 40% of all legislation goes through. That's how powerful that position is. And what nobody knew is that he was also working, he was an attorney. He was a lawyer legislator. So he had his own law firm, and he's a legislator. And he was working at Richard Quinn and Associates, a consulting firm. Nobody knew that he had a job there. In trial, we put up that he did no work at Richard and Quinn and Associates other than make almost $90,000 a year. What did we prove at trial that he did for that $90,000 a year? I think, as I recall, just one example of many. Jim Harrison had voted against the cigarette tax, was against it. A company then hired Richard Quinn and Associates for a consulting fee to help them message their cigarette tax better in the House. Well, guess who then goes and sponsors that legislation? The Richard Quinn and Associates employee, Jim Harrison. So you have a lobbyist principal paying money to the political consultant, who's now paying money to a legislator, who then goes and sponsors legislation for that company.
Not good.
Not good at all.
Not good.
And the jury convicted him, and the judge gave him 3 years.
Yeah. I guess at this point, I guess you're probably forming your opinions about our judicial system in South Carolina and stuff. So go ahead and tell us.
You're reading my mind.
What do you think about our judicial system where we're at today?
Man, you're reading my mind. One of the many struggles that I had during the corruption probe, was that those dirty legislators, those corrupt legislators that I'm bringing into court, who elected that judge?
Legislators.
Those same legislators.
Yeah.
When they're in trial or when they're doing their guilty plea, guess who's sitting in the gallery for support? And that judge is watching. the legislature.
It's not a good system.
No, it's not a good system. And that is why, for the last half decade, I've been going to Republican groups across the state for over 4 years now, all over the state, calling for judicial reform to take lawyer legislators off the JMSC. It is unethical and wrong for lawyer legislators to get to pick the judges and then go practice law in front of those same judges.
And you're taking it, I at this point, I want to say to listeners, and that anybody knows me, I'm 100% we need judicial reform in the state. It's not a fair system for all the reasons you're saying right now. But if David Pascoe could wave your wand, and we say, judicial reform, it means different things to different people. But what is it like to you? What is the perfect system for South Carolina, in your opinion?
All right, my perfect system, which would be difficult to have happen because it might take a constitutional amendment.
Okay.
And let me just say this. I know a lot of people are for publicly elected judges. That does take a constitutional amendment.
Okay.
It's going to be next to impossible to pass.
Okay.
Gubernatorial appointments, that will take a constitutional amendment. Again, next to impossible to pass. But let me tell you what I would love to see. I'm okay with the legislature voting for the judges on the front end, all right? But what I want to see is a Judicial Merit Selection Committee, a JMSC, with no legislators on it at all.
Okay.
Period. Just let them be all gubernatorial appointments, all 12 members. They do the screening, because that's where most of the shenanigans take place right now with the JMSC, with one of your state senators. That's where most of the shenanigans take place. Let them do the screening. Let the legislature vote up or on who should be elected in the first wave. But this is Pascoe's part 3, which is very important. The retention of that judge. What I want to make sure of is that we have a truly independent judiciary where they're not looking over their shoulder, seeing if they've offended a legislator when they have to go back for re-election.
And a lot of times I say it this way, it puts good judges in bad positions.
Exactly. That's exactly what it does. So what I want to see happen, instead of that judge worrying about that offending a legislator, that is when we let the people decide whether that judge should stay on the bench or not. And I think it comes out of the state of Missouri. A number of states do this, so we wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. When that judge's, say, 6-year term is up, that judge will go on the ballot, unopposed, right? And the people will give that judge an up or down vote as to whether they should stay on the bench or not.
That's very
If they get an up, the people have spoken, that judge stays. If they get a down, well then we'll start the process over and someone else will run for judge. We'll have screening by the governor's office and the legislature will pick the judge.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for sharing that. I just want to say anything's better than what we got now.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Anything's better than what we got now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our general public just don't even know the system, but it's not good.
They're learning it.
Yes, they are.
They are learning it.
All right, so you prosecute some more, put some more bad guys.
All right, so we get rid of all those legislators.
Okay.
I issue a state grand jury report, which I would ask your viewers, if you want to read about corruption in South Carolina, go to sesolicitor1.org and read the state grand jury report. It's an easy read. I wanted to go further because corruption runs very, very deep. Yeah, we took out some powerful people and did a whole lot more and issued that grand jury report. But I wanted to go much, much further because it runs deep and it's bipartisan. But the state Supreme Court, elected by legislators, coincidentally, said, Pascoe, you got to stop. And they said that I had to stop because they said, you're just a solicitor, you're not the attorney general, you don't have jurisdiction to go after more legislators. So I've decided to run for attorney general because I'm going to go back to Columbia and I'm going to finish the job I started.
Good deal. So you're running for attorney general. Okay. So you kind of addressed it early on in your life, but I'm going to get the other half of the donkey out of the room. So you switched parties.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, David. I mean, please explain to our listeners why you did that.
Well, the Republican Party in Dorchester County had been trying to get me to switch parties for many, many years.
Okay.
And they approached me. I was friends with the Dorchester County Republican chairman.
Okay.
And he approached me for the umpteenth time to try to get me to switch. I told him that because of some things that had happened in 2004 and even previous to that, that I was going to go ahead and switch. Okay. But let me tell your viewers one thing right now. I did not switch to run for attorney general.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things that Stephen would try to hit me with, the chairman of the Republican Party, is, why don't you switch parties and you'll run as Attorney General as a Republican and you'll win? I said, what makes you think I wouldn't win as a Democrat statewide? And of course, everybody says, well, you can't. I said, oh, really? And then I reminded him, I said, Stephen, what Republican is more conservative than me? He said, on issues of crime. He said, none. And then I reminded him, I've been going around to Republican groups for the last 4 years as a Democrat, speaking about the need for judicial reform and reforms with our criminal justice system, and that we needed to eradicate corruption in South Carolina. No one else has been doing that.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't think all those conservative groups that I've been to in the last 4 years that I couldn't pick off enough to win? And he looked at me and said, you know what, you probably would win, but we still want you to switch parties.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I'm going to switch for several reasons. One, I didn't want to be a member of a party that rigs elections. We talked about that on yesterday's segment. Also told him that Joe Biden's commutations of 37 of the most evil murderers in America, one of which took place right here in Myrtle Beach or in Conway. Brandon Council walked into a bank and executed 2 women. There's no reason for him to do that other than he just wanted to. And Biden commutes his sentence 2 days before Christmas? That's not law and order. I didn't want to be a member of that party. And also, I realized something. I want to fight corruption. Crime, corruption, protecting our children. One-trick pony when it comes to those things. It's what I wake up thinking about every day. And I realized something, Autry. For 4 years, I gave an open invitation to every group in the state. If you want Pascoe to come talk to you about corruption and judicial reform, invite me and I'll come talk to your group. I was invited to over 24 groups across the state. Right here in Autry County, the American Conservative Voices invited me a couple of times to come speak. My point was this. Every group that invited me to talk about fighting corruption was a Republican group.
I got you.
So I decided if you're going to fight corruption in South Carolina, it's got to be with the voters of the GOP.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you answering that question, and I think your life shows conservative principles always through. As you know, sometimes in politics, people switch parties just because it's politically easy to do. We have some in Autry County that have done that, and they still really are hold Democratic principles. You know, so I think it's important to people to know that you believe that. But thank you for answering that. I think it's good for people to know that. I would just tell them to follow your life and what you believe. And I appreciate you mentioning those murders in Autry County. It is very personal here, what happened, and that guy needs to meet his maker, you know, for what he did. So anyway, moving on. So running for Attorney General, what is, you already said you want to finish the job that you started. What else needs to be done in Attorney General's office? What's your vision if elected?
Several big things. We need to do a better job of protecting our children.
Okay.
We're not just going to talk about needing a death penalty statute for child rapists. We're going to go after child rapists with the death penalty. What people don't realize is we've already got that crime on the books.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and seek the death penalty on a child rapist. I'm going to let the U.S. Supreme Court tell me that it's wrong. I don't think they're going to do that in this case. We're going to institute that youth mentor program I told you about yesterday at a statewide level to help our children. We're going to fight corruption, the second thing. I believe that an Attorney General's most important duty is to be where corruption needs an adversary. And that's where I'm going to be with a public corruption unit that I'm going to establish with 12 prosecutors and investigators. We are going to ensure that PCU is going to make sure that we have transparency at every level of government. The days of darkness are over in South Carolina, and this is what I mean by that. How many times have we seen watchdog groups or the press or individuals FOIA information from a county council or a government entity and they don't get it? And they can't afford to go out and hire a lawyer and take them to court. The Attorney General's office will be their lawyer, and we will get those documents. We're not going to have the problem that they have in Minnesota with the Somali daycares under my watch as Attorney General. We are going to have total transparency. I will get those documents. I will be the lawyer for every watchdog group in South Carolina that doesn't have their FOIA request met. When town councils want to go into executive session to talk about things other than personnel matters and want to talk about budget, my PCU will go to those towns and we will remind them that that is against the law and that is subject to prosecution.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So we're going to have the most anti-corruption Attorney General's office in the history of the state by doing that and a lot more.
Transparency is important, isn't it, David?
Absolutely.
It's the people's business.
It's the most important thing you can have.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't have it, that's what the cause of Minnesota is. You know, I mean, and we got to make sure we don't have that in South Carolina.
Yeah. And I think it's important to, we do have some people doing it for the right. Do you believe that? That we do have some people in Columbia that are doing it for the right reasons?
I think that the majority of the people that go up to Columbia,
I think they need to hear that from you, because I think some people try to cover you that everybody's bad.
oh yeah, no, and that's not true at all. I think that the majority of the people that go up to Columbia have great intentions. They're great parents. They're great spouses. They're good people. But their sin, and I do call them all out on this,
Yeah.
is toleration.
Okay.
There are very few Representative Joe Whites up there who call it out. I want to see some more representatives like Joe White who call out the waste, fraud, and corruption
Gotcha.
up in Columbia, because that's what I'm going to be going after as Attorney General.
So, and as much as I said that, but there is still some corruption there, would you say?
A lot of it.
A lot of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the PCU is going to look at every single statement of economic interest, every single campaign disclosure form, because usually the crimes are right under our noses. I saw that during the corruption probe. It was right there under our noses.
I got you. Good. Well, you know, what lessons from your life, this is the question that's on my mind, you know, do you think the lessons from the life you lived so far have built to this point that you're the man for the hour?
Yeah,
the AG's
I do.
office.
I think my experience, both as an assistant solicitor, as a solicitor, and as the special prosecutor during the State House corruption probe, has led me to this point. I know that I'm the person for the job.
I got you. Is there some things that the current AG is doing that is good that you would keep? Is there some things there?
I absolutely like the way he has done a good job of being the front line against the federal government encroaching upon our sovereignty.
Okay.
And I think that is the job of an attorney general. One thing I want to do is even maybe try to improve on that, you know, because usually it's low-hanging fruit. You see 17 or 30 states have already filed lawsuits against the federal government to stop them from encroaching on our rights. I want South Carolina, I'm going to try to have South Carolina lead the way and maybe be the first state to file those lawsuits, not the 17th. But no, I have to give him credit for that. I think he's done a good job with that.
Good. And I think you said it, but like when someone says, well, if David Pascoe is elected, he's just going to be hyper-focused on this, what would you say to the naysayers on that?
Well, as long as you say hyper-focused on protecting our children, ending corruption, lowering crime, and protecting our sovereignty, you're absolutely right.
Okay, that's good.
Those are the things I'm going to be hyper-focused on.
That's good. Is there anything I've missed, David, that you want to get out there to the voters as they're contemplating and getting to know David Pascoe?
Well, you know, the Attorney General's most important duty is to be the chief prosecutor for the state of South Carolina. I'm the only one that's put men on death row. I've the only one that's prosecuted public corruption. So I think that I'm much more qualified than anybody else that's even thinking about running for this job.
That's good. Any parent advice you want to give us?
Wow, that's great. I was blessed.
Kind of catch you off guard with this.
Yeah, you caught me off guard, but can I tell you, I was very blessed because my sons are better men than I am. They were better boys than I was. They were better students. They were better athletes. They're better people than I was. So for whatever reason, God gave me a very easy job. You know, usually parenthood is by far the most important job we do, but it's should be kind of difficult. It was the easiest job I've ever had.
Yeah, what are they into now?
Well, my oldest, I can't believe I got one, is almost 30. He's retired captain from the Air Force.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for your service. But he got out of the Air Force he went in the Air Force after graduating from the Citadel. He's working at a defense contracting firm, but unfortunately he wants to go to law school. I still love him, even though he wants to be a lawyer. And then I've got the twins that are 25. They both graduated from Clemson. They're a lot smarter than their old man and their older brother. And one of them is a lieutenant in Destin, Florida, in the United States Air Force.
Thank you again for your service.
And John, he is the computer guru. He got a master's degree at Clemson on cybersecurity and computer science, and so they're all doing wonderful. And
super smart men like their dad.
well, a lot smarter than their dad. And I'm just blessed. And I'm also blessed that we have cell phones. I couldn't have made it as a parent in the 80s or 90s. I'm on a text chain with those boys every single day. We're texting each other.
Wow.
And they humble me, trust me. I cannot share my texts that they send me because they humble me.
Wow. Well, what do you do to relax? You deal with some pretty heavy stuff in life. So how do you relax?
Christy will tell you I have no hobbies.
No hobbies. Okay.
My hobbies are work.
Yeah.
Because I love it. I mean, I get focused on wanting to get a job done, and that is my hobby.
Yeah.
So once I start focusing on ending in corruption in Colombia, that will be my hobby.
Yeah.
I don't play golf because I'm horrible.
Yeah.
I don't hunt.
Yeah.
All I do is work and maybe read a good book.
Yeah, I got you. And you kind of answered this question, but I've asked Senator Harpootlian, and I've asked Jimbo this, and I've asked Senator Hembry this, but y'all deal with heavy crime, murders, heavy crime. But how do you come home and have dinner with your wife? How do you switch to looking at evidence and then come home? Hey, we're gonna have dinner tonight.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I would love to know what their answers are. When you've done it for 33 years, you're able to not turn it off, because you never turn it off, but you're able to segue into I never wanted it to affect my sons or my wife, my family. So you're able to suppress it when you have to.
I got you.
Yeah.
I bet it gives you a view of the world different though when you're.
Absolutely, Autry. I remember, and we live in Orangeburg, and I would tell my sons, "You better not be going to this gas station."
Okay.
Because I have done 3 homicides in this gas station just in the last 12 months, literally. I would tell them that. My wife, Christy, I fussed at her for going to a gas station once that I asked her not to go to, because, you see things and you just, and that's what's bad. And you mentioned that. You read the facts of a murder, a homicide or something really bad, and you realize that could have been my son. That could have been my son pumping air in his tires at that gas station at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And as we're wrapping up, you were very candid and asked, between the party systems in our country and our state, and we are a very polarized society, David. Republican, Democrat, but I do believe, and I am a conservative Republican, but I do believe we need to start having more conversations and finding more grounds where we can work together.
We do, and I am so excited. Tomorrow I'm doing a Palmetto Revolution rally with my friend Ron Reddy, and you would think, well, Pascoe, obviously you're doing it in some hotbed Republican area. We're doing it in Orangeburg for that reason, so we can have dialogue with both Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And what I would tell people, and let me tell you this, full disclosure, Republicans don't like it, I'm sorry. I love my Orangeburg Democrats. I love them. They've always had my back. And as I tell my Republican friends, again, don't think about the state party or the national party when you think about the people that are going in the voting booth in Orangeburg. My base in Orangeburg is an African American woman, a black woman who goes to church every single Sunday, who loves God, oftentimes is pro-life, like me, and none of them want a man in their bathroom. And all of them want safe streets and a tough prosecutor. So we have a lot in common. So let's get in a room together and talk about that.
We just need to get her to be the Republican side.
That's right.
Her party's left her.
We'll try.
But we, and when I say that, we know what we believe. And
Yeah.
I can tell you're a man of conviction. We might not, sometimes they're not going to change your mind,
Yeah.
but we got to talk.
Yes.
And I think that's how we make our communities, our state, and our country better. We've got to bring the temperature down some way or shape or
Absolutely.
form.
Both sides need to
Both
bring
sides,
it down.
both sides, for sure. Well, listen, we're wrapping up today, but listen, I might bring you back and talk again, but best of luck to you on the trail, and thank you for your time today, and God bless you.
Thank you, Autry.
Folks, thank you for joining us. If you didn't catch yesterday's part 1, go back. You need to look at the whole interview to understand David Pascoe. And listen, it is election season, and it is our American right to get to vote for who we want to. Do your homework, but go vote. Whoever you are, go vote. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.